Man, we're talking about the top 10 of all time. All time. Washington Commanders. Stay tuned. You're going to see this.
Dun, 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 dun.
Let's go. The Washington Commanders. There it is.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy, Sean Spencer, one half of that dynamic duo that is Let's Talk Football. And I am back. Yes, sir. I am back again talking about my favorite team, my guys, the Commanders, formerly known as the football team, formerly known as the dreaded R word, the Redskins. But hey, we're here. Great legacy of success through my upbringing in the 80s and early 90s. And obviously, since then, it has been a bit of a struggle. But a couple years ago, we got back to that top level, making it to the NFC Championship. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get over that hump, but it was good to be back. And then last year kind of felt like we were back to what we have been recently. But look, we're not talking about that today. We got to look at the history of this. And hey, look, for those of you that know Washington and have followed the team, you know there are bits and pieces in the history that is great. Now, that 12-year span from 1981, where we went 8-8, and then followed it up with two Super Bowl appearances in 82 and 83, all the way to Joe Gibbs' last year on his first run in 1992, coming off the Super Bowl victory in 91, and then 92 going 9-7 and making it to the divisional playoff. Those years are unmatched. 3 Super Bowls, 3 different quarterbacks, only one losing season. Constantly, perennially, we were the team, one of the top teams, definitely in the league and in the NFC, man. And it was a beautiful time, a great time to grow up in. I will be honest, it definitely kind of it teased me, made me think that we were always going to be a winner, and unfortunately, that did not come to fruition. But we have always had studs. We've always had great players through the good years and the bad years. We've always had great ones. And I got to dive into that. I absolutely have to dive into it. So I appreciate y'all joining me today. And we're going to get right into it. But before we do, I got to shout out my guys in Chicago. Alcala's Western Wear. You're going to want to tune into this. I did a little commercial for them a while ago. Check this out. I'll be right back with the best of the rest.
Howdy, y'all. Sean Spencer here. Today we're going to take a look at a little piece of Southern country right here in Midwest home, downtown Chicago.
Looking for boots? They've got them. Looking for chaps? Not a problem. Looking for hats? They've got that.
Find your piece of country living.
Yeah, buddy, that is Alcala's Western Wear in Chicago. It has a couple other locations, but you definitely want to get in touch with them if you need to get with your Western wear. You saw the hat, you saw the chaps, you saw the boots. I don't regularly wear them, but on that day, I definitely had them. So look, but you know what we're doing. We're talking Washington Commanders football team, Redskins, the greatest all time. And look, a lot of people, everybody's gonna have their opinions. I saw a list not too long ago. It looked like it was more present day talent, and that's great. And there's a lot of present day guys that were great. Obviously, the Terry McLaurins recently, the Trent Williams in his time where he had here. I mean, everybody. There's a lot of people I saw put JD5 up on that list. And I'm thinking it's a little bit too early. Even saw some people put RG3 up on that list. And I got to shout out my buddy Nathan Snell, talk about some Alfred Morris. Look, there's been a lot of great players, a lot of great seasons that have been here with Washington. We could throw out some Santana Mosses, Antoine Randall, a lot of guys that have been here and have been great. But I'm going to start off with my best of the rest. These guys didn't make the cut, but I definitely wanted to give them attention. First and foremost, H-back, tight end, Washington favorite. If you know a lot of Washington fans from like the 2000 to I think 09 or 08, Chris Cooley Holy! Everybody loved him. H-back, tight end. Still believe holds the record for most receptions by a tight end with 429. Captain Chaos, as they called him. '08 and '09, he was a Pro Bowler, and he's been a part of around the organization. Well beloved, well liked, great, and he's definitely somebody I wanted to give some recognition to. Another guy, got to talk about. I'm not wearing his jersey, but when we talk about my favorite Redskins, this is going to be a guy that is going to be up there. At spoiler alert, top of the list, Doug Williams. January 31st, 1988. This man cemented his place in history. 35-point second quarter after being injured, brought back in and just, 4-5 straight drives, leading them in the end zone. 35-point second quarter. Timmy Smith had a 40-some-odd yard TD run, and then Doug Williams had 4 TD passes in the quarter. Ended up beating the Broncos 42-10. Doug Williams, yes, he was our backup, and so he was not the starter. And that I really wanted to put him on my all-time list, but I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest. Doug is one of the best of the rest. He's one of my favorites and one of the 3 quarterbacks that Joe Gibbs used are paired with to get himself a Super Bowl. Another one of the guys on this list of the best of the rest, Mark Mosley. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, "What? A kicker on this list?" But we gotta show that 1982 season. He was the NFL MVP, where he was 20 of 21 field goals, including, I believe, 18 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. Won the NFL MVP, only kicker to ever win the NFL MVP. 95%, 95% kicking, 95% rate on his kicks. And in 1983, led the league with 161 points en route to our second Super Bowl appearance, even though we ended up losing to the Raiders that year. Another guy on this list as best of the rest, Wilbur Marshall. Obviously, a lot of people know him from his time with the Chicago Bears and that 46 defense winning the Super Bowl 20. He was one of the first big name guys to land somewhere else in free agency, where he came to us, I believe, in '88. But it was that 1991 year where he was an integral part of our defense. I believe in that first month of September, I believe each of the games we played at home, we shut them out. And he had a couple interceptions. I mean, he was picking passes off and taking it back. That highlight video of the 91 yearbook had him all throughout there. And it was such a big part in our defense. And I think one of the, integral parts of turning us into a good defense, turning us from a good defense into a great defense. Always great to see him and talk about him. Definitely gets underrated, but he is, if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the 70 greatest Redskins and the 1992 Defensive Player of the Year. So, I mean, the dude was a monster. I absolutely was a huge fan of his, and so I had to throw him on this list. Another name, and a lot of people are going to give me flack. I've seen a lot of people put him on their all-time list posthumously. Hey, this is my list. This is what I'm thinking. Sean Taylor. And hear me out, ladies and gentlemen. We all know how great he was when he was with us. We all know how great he could have been potentially. Unfortunately, he was taken from us too early, and so we will never know what would have been. But for what he was, he's definitely needs to be recognized. He's definitely somebody that we all need to remember, and how he was, he was a fearsome tackler. Everybody remembers that it was the one Pro Bowl he got in '06 where the punter tried to do a fake punt and he absolutely lit him up. And it's like, I don't care if it's a Pro Bowl, we still playing out here. And that's something I love to see. And 304 tackles, 12 interceptions, 8 forced fumbles. I mean, the guy was a monster. 4 seasons. Who knows what would have happened had he stay, he wouldn't have been taken from us. But shout out to Sean Taylor. The guy was a monster. He's absolutely great. Another guy I got to throw out here, Monty Coleman. A lot of people this is a lot of people got to really love Washington to know Monty Coleman. 16 years, 215 games played, second in franchise history, 43 and a half sacks, three-time Super Bowl champion with the team. I mean, the guy was a pro, a veteran. I mean, stayed, if I'm not mistaken, from 80 to 90. Let me see if I got it on my notes. Stayed from 80s to the late 90s, or early 90s. But the guy was a fixture in that defense, a leader, and the old man towards the early 90s and on there. But I mean, he was always a vocal leader on the team. I'm always been a huge fan. I actually got his autograph in the early 90s, so it was always kind of cool to see that. And another guy I wanted to put on this list, Ken Harvey. Listen, 13 and a half sacks when he was with us in 94. One of the biggest, we signed him one of the biggest contracts for a defensive player at that time. 4 straight Pro Bowls with us until he retired in 98. The guy is great. I mean, if you know, he obviously started with the Cardinals, then came over to us, and those were not the best years for us. So having players like that, it really did big things for Washington. So I always love seeing it. And then another person I got to put on this list as best as the rest, and the only reason he's not on my all-time list is because the guy's a head coach, and we got to go Joe Gibbs. 3 Super Bowls, 3 different quarterbacks, 4 total Super Bowls because he lost the one against the Raiders, unfortunately. 5 NFC Championship games, won 4 of them. We lost to the Giants in 86, the 86-87 season. Only 1 losing season. Starts off 0-5 in 1981 and we end up going 8-8 towards the end of the year. Obviously, go to the Super Bowl in 82, the Super Bowl in 83. 14-2, just dominate the league in 83. Unfortunately, we lose that Super Bowl. Then makes a decision to bring in Doug Williams for the playoffs in 87. End up going on to win the Super Bowl that year, and then has Mark Rippon in the playoffs in 91, and we just dominate the league again. So everything that Joe Gibbs did, I mean, just the person that he was, how he worked with the team, how he was able to just use different, players and put them in the staff, his coaching staff with Richie Pettibone and Joe Bugle and, had working with Charlie Casserly and all that stuff. Joe is amazing. I will always be a huge fan of Joe Gibbs. And so I had to give him a little bit of recognition on this list. So that is my best of the rest, and I'm going to take a quick breather to give you like the intro of what it is, Let's Talk Football, the old intro, but I think you got to see it, and I'm going to come back with the people that nearly missed on my list. Now these might get a little bit more backlash because they nearly missed, but just let's tune in to see. But this is Let's Talk Football. Tune in this fall, Janae and I.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
I am Janae Strother.
I'm Sean Spencer.
Back.
We are back.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen.
I gotta go out and hold up.
Come on. The lion. The lion. You need to find me. Kirk Cousins.
All right. I am Janae Strother.
I am Sean Spencer.
And this is Let's Talk Football.
Yeah, buddy, that is my partner, Janae Strother, and myself doing Let's Talk Football. This fall, we will be doing our 9th season of Let's Talk Football, almost to that 10th season. It is so crazy how the time has flown, but we are still rocking and rolling. We will be here this fall, so definitely stay tuned so I can dog on her daggone Cowboys and she can be jealous of my command center, the Commanders, the Stars. Let's go. Well, look, I'm back, and I gave you my best of the rest. Now I got to give you the guys that nearly missed, and I know a lot of y'all are going to give me flack for this. I'm going to start off right here. I put this little spoiler. I got Art Monk on my list, but I wanted to recognize the rest. Gary Clark, Ricky Sanders, the other two members of the posse. I was a huge fan of Ricky Sanders and Gary Clark. Gary Clark going to James Madison University, local guy. I mean, those guys were studs, in my opinion. I don't understand how anybody was able to stop us in the 80s and early 90s when we had those guys out there. As long as we had a competent quarterback that can get them the ball, and it didn't matter who it was, Jeff Rutledge, Mark Rippon, Doug Williams, Jace Rader, Joe Theismann. I mean, Joe, I don't know if Joe played with Ricky Sanders, but I think he played with Gary Clark. But when we had those guys on the field, it was a mismatch problem. And I didn't want to take away from Art Monk and how great he was, but I definitely had to give him his due. But I wanted to talk about Gary Clark and Ricky Sanders. A couple other names that nearly missed my list, one being Pat Fisher, a great safety that played with Washington in the early years, part of the Over the Hill gang and things like that. I mean, a devastating hitter. One of the guys that pioneered the bump and run coverage. Loved what he was able to bring. Bobby Mitchell, which, if I'm not mistaken, was the first African-American player that was signed by Washington. Great wide receiver, came from Cleveland, and I think it was running back turn wide receiver. Him along with Charlie Taylor, dangerous duo. I mean, absolutely dynamic duo. Those guys worked very well together. Bobby worked with the Washington organization for several years until his passing. And I mean, one of the forgotten heroes, but I mean, the guy was a giant. The guy played amazing when he played for Washington, number 49, man. So shout him out for sure. Another name I got to put out here, and this is where a lot of people that are more recent are going to see, guys, the name of Terry McLaurin. Obviously, Scary Terry. A lot of people love him. I'm a big fan of his as right now. And eventually, I think he could crack, maybe the top 25 list, or he can crack one of these. And I had to throw his name out there. Ryan Kerrigan, the franchise's sack leader. Got to show him love as well. The guy was a menace for some teams that weren't the best. And it was really great to have him to be a part of this organization and do everything that he was able to do. Charles Mann, another one of those guys. He went opposite of Dexter Manley. The guy, I mean, I think it was 2 Super Bowls, Super Bowl 22 and Super Bowl 26, and then went on to go to the Super Bowl with the 49ers and win with them in 94. I mean, Charles Mann, what I loved about him was not only was he a force on the football field and just dominant with how he played on the field, being, double-digit sacks several years, but then after that, he was able to parlay that career into being a broadcaster, being a news anchor, really worked and got himself in the media field, and now has been doing a lot of great things after that. Charles Mann is one of those guys I definitely looked up to. And London Fletcher, a lot of people are going to give me crap for this. London Fletcher, I love what London Fletcher did. We all know he's the Iron Man. We all know he's got as many tackles as Bobby Wagner, and Bobby Wagner is, supposedly this instant Hall of Famer. Well, London Fletcher definitely needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I definitely say that. The only reason I didn't put him on this list, one, for the 10 guys that I have above him, I think warranted just a little bit better, a little bit more than him. But also, London Fletcher had some time over with the Rams, and he was great over there with them. Look, London is a great linebacker, and if this was a top 15, he's already on there, with no doubt about it. But I definitely wanted to. He just didn't make my list. He might make yours, and hey, that's why each of us has our own. But I definitely thought London should be considered as the ones that nearly missed. And the other one that nearly missed for me, the Hogs. And here's my thought about that. I could have used Russ Grimm. I could have gone with Joe Jacoby. I could have thrown them up there. But I just didn't think it was right to separate the crew. I didn't think it was right to take this guy out and say this guy was a little better than this. And I understand some of these guys were on there a lot longer. We got Lachey in there, R.C. Tillman, Riley McKenzie, Mark May. I mean, there are so many guys that we could have added, and I just I'm just going to say the Hogs. That was a dominant O-line that spearheaded the run game for John Riggins and Joe Washington, that spearheaded the run game for Ernest Biner and Gerald Riggs. I mean, Timmy Smith had 204 yards in Super Bowl 22, a record that still stands as most rushing yards by a running back in a Super Bowl game. So, look, those guys cleared the way for not only the running game, but gave excellent protection for Theismann, for Doug Williams, for Mark Rippon, obviously throw in Jay Schrader, Rutledge, all those guys. We were by far one of the best, if not the best, O-line at that period from 80 to 91, 92. And arguably, I'd put the Hogs up against any line in all time. I honestly would. That is my team. That's my guys. So again, I am a little biased, but I love the Hogs, and so I had to put them. I didn't want to separate them. So with them all being, they just missed my list. And if I had a 10B, I would definitely have them in there. But look, now we got to get to the good stuff. So I'm gonna real quick. I'm gonna take a quick breather. Let my guy Anton Benson talk about himself and the things that he does and puts the work he puts together, and then stay tuned because I'm giving you my top 10 all time list. One other guy that did not make the list, and it was a late subtraction, and it was Brian Mitchell. And the reason is I loved everything that Bree Mitch has did for the team, getting drafted in 1990, obviously an elite kick returner. All time, the guy is second overall in all-purpose yards, second only to Jerry Rice, and played with us for several years, was a kick returner, punt returner, running back, and even emergency quarterback, I believe in the body bag game against Philly. But he also played elsewhere. I think he played until 2003, but he also played with the Giants and the Eagles and stuff like that. So while I think he is one of the all-time greats, especially with everything that he does now in sports media for Washington, I subbed him out. So forgive me, B. Mitch. You're still great in my eyes, but I definitely subbed him out. But yeah, let's do a quick breather, and then I'm going to give you my top 10. Yeah, buddy, that is my guy, Anton Benton of Awesome Artisans, awesome_artisans on Instagram. The guy does great work. Stay tuned for new commercials that he's going to have coming up. Also, like a PSA, why do you need to use primer when you paint? But definitely, stay tuned. He's going to do some good stuff with that. But, he definitely travels in the 757 area, which is Virginia Beach. He goes up and down the East Coast and also to the Midwest, but he's stationed in Virginia Beach area, so he does great things. Look, it's your boy Sean Spencer. I am back doing my top 10 all-time greatest Washington Redskins football team commanders, and I've given you my best of the rest. I've given you my near misses, and now I'm giving you the top 10 guys that should be on this list, and I'm starting with Hall of Famer Charlie Taylor. Charlie Taylor as number 10, drafted in 1964, third overall, drafted as a running back and run Rookie of the Year in 1964 as a running back, and he was top 10 in rushing and receiving, moved over to wide receiver in 1966, where he would lead the league in receiving in 66 and 67, help Washington to beat Dallas in the NFC Championship game in 72, and then go on to play in Super Bowl 7 Fortunately, lost to Miami, but Charlie Taylor, I mean, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest Redskins. The guy was just a difference maker. I mean, he was out otherworldly. The guy had strength at over 6'2", 200 pounds. He can. I mean, this is back when DBs could maul you at the line. There was no, they were slow to call that whistle on the pass interference. I mean, they can club you, they can clothesline you, they can do all this. He was going up against some of those guys, some of those tough guys in the late '60s, early '70s, and Charlie Taylor, rest in peace, one of the greats, and that is my number 10 on this list. Now I got to move on to the quarterback that was throwing him most of his passes, Sonny Jurgensen at number 9. Started with Philly, helped them to win the 1960 NFL championship as the backup for Norm Van Brocklin, and then ended up starting for them in '61, but traded to Washington in '64. Hey, look, this guy was slinging. I mean, we know about slinging Sammy Ball. We're going to talk about him a little bit later. But Sonny Jurgensen, I mean, he could sling that thing all around. One of my favorite clips of his was it was the first time I've ever seen somebody throw a spiral, and I mean a tight spiral, by whipping it around his back to a wide receiver 20 yards down the field. I mean, the guy was a monster. His golden arm absolutely led the league multiple times in passing yards and completions. He had it was part of 5 Pro Bowls, and he had 3 NFL passing titles. And look, even at the age 40, when a lot of people are leaving the league, he led in the NFC in passer rating. Sonny Jurgensen, Hall of Famer. A lot of you that listened to Washington like I did on the radio, coming back from church or coming back from wherever, he was one of those voices that would be there and talk so glowingly about the team. Recently just passed away, and he will absolutely be missed. Sonny Jurgensen, one of the greats. So I had to absolutely throw him on this list. All right, now we got to move on to my number 8. This is where it was switched. At one point I had B. Mitch here, but I had to put somebody else here. And I had to shout out my guy, number 72, Dexter Manley, on this list. Drafted in 1981 in the 5th round, played 9 seasons in Washington. Okay. 4 consecutive years, he had double-digit sacks from 83 to 86. And in 86, he had 18 and a half sacks. This guy was a monster on that D-line. Him, you had Dave Butts in the middle. Daryl Grant was also in the middle. And then you had Charles Mann, who I talked about earlier, on the other side. I mean, come on now. Quarterbacks were fearing our D-line in the mid to late 80s. So, I mean, this guy was just, I mean, he wasn't afraid to talk to you. He wasn't afraid to say it. He would tell you he was coming after you. He would talk trash to these quarterbacks and everything. Was able to get Pro Bowl, all pro honors and Pro Bowl in '86. Helped Washington to 2 Super Bowls, Super Bowl 17 where we got the W, or 3 Super Bowls actually, Super Bowl 17 and Super Bowl 22 where we got the wins. And unfortunately in Super Bowl 18 we lost to the Raiders, and he ends up being in the Washington Ring of Fame. But I want to shout him out because a lot of people don't know this about him, and actually throughout his whole college and pro career, a lot of people didn't know he was illiterate. Schools passed him along because he was such a great athlete, and it really speaks to the type of person that he was, that he learned how to memorize playbooks. He learned how to listen to what other people were saying and kind of mimic what they were saying. And it's a tragedy that he was pushed along, and people didn't take the time to actually teach him and work with him. But then at the same time, it showed his toughness and his ingenuity. He was able to survive and push it. And yes, the athletic ability was the vehicle, but he was able to kind of work through some of those deficiencies. And eventually, he left Washington. Things kind of fell off. We got to some issues and things of that nature. But he's since, rectified those issues. And just shout out to him, man. Dexter Manley was a force, an absolute force on that D-line. Over 100 career sacks, if I'm not mistaken. So Dexter manly. Had to put him up there at number 8 overall. The guy was a monster. The guy was an absolute monster. All right, now to number 7. And hey, I don't know where you guys would have him on your list, but number 7 for me has got to be Mr. Joe Theismann. And look, a lot of people know him 1985 against the New York Giants. If you saw the movie Blindside, you know what's coming next. If you see my uncle, my brother, my older brother, and he's a diehard Giants fan, on the back of his giant truck, he has an image of Joe Theismann setting up the pass, and you see LT coming. And what happened next ended Joe Theismann's career. LT came, sacked him, snapped his leg. Joe Theismann never played again. And look, you got to talk about this guy. Joined us in 1974. Wasn't able to start actually until 1978. Took the lead, led us to 2 Super Bowls, back-to-back Super Bowls, one in '82 where he was able to get the win. And arguably, he was, there was a play where, he's rolling out. Miami's defenders kind of got up in his face. They jumped. He tried to throw it over the head. I think it was Kim Bokamper. Tipped it, was going to catch it, and it would have been a walk-in touchdown. And you see Joe Theismann just swipe his hands and knock the ball out. Ended up saving the game for us, and we ended up pulling it out a little bit later. Joe brought us to our first ever Super Bowl title in 1982. Unfortunately, that following year, we didn't have the same success. We had the same success throughout the season and then took it to the NFC Championship and won that. But then we got mollywopped by the, at that time, Los Angeles Raiders. It was 83. It wasn't pretty. It absolutely wasn't pretty. But Joe in 1982 was the NFL Man of the Year. In 1983 was the NFL MVP. If you know Joe Theismann, he's not soft-spoken. The man can speak. You've seen him for years after he left football due to the injury. He was on NFL Sunday Night as one of the analysts and broadcasters on there. He's been on a number of drafts where he was one of the analysts working with Mel Kiper. And then also he's done on stuff on NFL Network and everything. He calls some of the Washington games. Joe Theismann is a fixture in Washington. It's so great. He was the first quarterback that Joe Gibbs worked with to get his Super Bowl victories. And hey, Joe Theismann is a name. And fun fact about Joe Theismann, his last name is actually pronounced Theismann. And what ended up happening was when he was at Notre Dame, he was in running for the Heisman Award. And so they came to him and basically said, if you change your name to the pronunciation to Theismann, maybe that'll help you out. And, he ended up not winning the award, but it's pretty interesting to see. And the funny thing, he was actually going to go to play Miami, and I believe that was in 71 or 72. And had he played in Miami, he would have played in or maybe not played. Well, he would have, I believe, because I believe Greasy got hurt for Miami. And so then Theismann would have been the backup and potentially would have played in Super Bowl VII when the Dolphins ended up beating Washington for the Super Bowl. But he ended up not playing in Miami, ended up going over to the Canadian League and playing for like the Argonauts or something like that. But he ended up coming back to us and doing great stuff. So, hey, Joe Theismann is my number 7 overall pick. All right, we got to keep moving to one of the guys that he threw to, Art Monk, who just got into the Hall of Fame. Well, not just got into it, but I believe 2012, him and Darryl Green. Was it 2012? I think it might have been 2012. Correct me if I'm wrong, but him and Darryl Green getting in there. Look, Art Monk, drafted 18th overall in 1980. The first player in NFL history for over 100 receptions, set a record at the time with 106 receptions. I mean, consummate just pro, okay? This is the guy that shows up, not going to say much, not going to get in your face, being the hardest worker, first one in the building, last one out the building. And he's one of those like Barry, touchdown, flip it to the ref. He might spike it and show a little excitement, but I mean he's played a game, act like you've been there before. Part of all four Super Bowls, all three Super Bowl victories, and I mean, look, he in my opinion, the leader of the posse. Always there. He was the guy that might be looked at as the possession receiver, but don't trip on him. Don't test him because he'll take you deep. He'll take you deep. I mean, hands just of gold. I mean, just pop, pop, pop. He in 1992 against the Denver Broncos broke Steve Largence's mark for most receptions in a career, and by the time Art Monk left in 93, I think it was 93 or 94, he ended up having the most receptions of all time. He was a leader at that time, and I believe at 940 receptions. That's since been broken. But I mean, look, first get over 100 receptions in the season. Led the league. Always one of the top tier wide receivers in the game. And hey, what can you say about the guy? Glad he's in the Hall of Fame. Just got into the Ring of Fame, I believe, or the Washington. We just celebrated him a year ago and retired his jersey. That's what we did. So shout out to my guy Art. Love that guy. Loved him absolutely. All right, now we are going to go to our number 5 pick, and you know what that is. Fire up that diesel. That diesel. John Riggins, number 44, started his career with the Jets, but came to Washington in 76, nicknamed the Diesel for his bruising style. So I always looked at him as a running back, but he's technically a fullback. And, you look at it nowadays, obviously fullback is almost obsolete. You can see some of the guys like Kyle Juszczyk, Ricard, that just was played for the Ravens, that just went over to the Giants. But at that time, fullbacks were dominant. Well, some of them were pretty solid. I mean, this guy, he was the prototypical. You think about the Mike Allstotts, the Craig Ironhead Hayward. This guy there's a reason why they called him the Diesel. This guy was a monster, but he was also a character off the field, and that is what's so cool about it. Like, he was one that before people did mohawks, he was rocking the mohawk. He would always after practice, they like the little football shed, him and the O lineman would sit there and have their beers and sit chilling. I mean, this guy was an absolute joy to talk about, and everybody who interviewed him just so funny and just an individual in a time when everybody was kind of uniform, and I loved it. Super Bowl 17, 4th and 1. The game's on the line. What do? When you go to the dance, you dance with the one who brung you. They brought it to John Riggins off the left side, 70 chip. Was it 70 chip or good? I gotta go back and look. I don't know, but gave it to him off the left side. Took it 43 yards on the 4th and 1 for the touchdown. We ended up winning 27-17. He was the MVP at the time. It was the record for most rushing yards in a Super Bowl, which was 166. Oddly enough, the record was broken the following year against Washington with Marcus Allen at 191. But still, John Riggins was that guy, and the photo says it all. I mean, breaking that tackle, going 43 yards for the win, for the lead, and we would never trail again in that ball game. John Riggins, the Diesel, Hall of Famer. When he retired in 1985, he was top 5 all-time rushing. What else can you say? I mean, still somebody that is talked about. I believe he was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 92, still part of, the organization, and still, as far as talking, I believe doing some broadcasting, some radio work, some stuff like that. But Riggo, that's the guy. Riggo is the guy. All right, we got to keep this thing moving right along. Number 4 on this list, Ken Houston. Now, a lot of you, ladies and gentlemen, might not know who Ken Houston is. Now, a lot of you old heads probably will know who Ken Houston is. Ken Houston is a defensive back who got drafted by the Houston Oilers. I don't think they were the Oilers at first. I think they were Houston Texans, and they turned into the Oilers, the old AFL. Was a star then. Once he came to Washington in '73, the guy was a stud. And there's no other ways to say it. Named to 12 consecutive Pro Bowls. Let me repeat that. 12 consecutive Pro Bowls from 1968 to 1979. Was an All-Pro or All NFL every season from 1973 to 1979. I mean, this dude was tough. I mean, one of the best DBs, and the picture says it all. The moment that a lot of, and I wasn't alive at the time, but I've seen the highlights as somebody that loves NFL films, the moment that a lot of the people of his era remember. Game on the line, playing your arch rival. They need a touchdown to win it. Craig Morton rolls out to the right. He rolls, he's looking, he sees his running back, Walt Garrison, hits him, throws it to him. Walt Garrison catches it at the one, and all of a sudden you see Ken Houston wrap him up, and he literally takes it, picks him up, and takes him back and makes sure that Walt Garrison does not get into that end zone, stops him at the 1 yard line. If you think that image was it Mike Jones in Super Bowl, was it Super Bowl 34 where the Rams beat Tennessee, where he stopped Dyson from getting into the end zone. This was like that moment. Pulled him back, and it being against our rival in the very last minute to stop them from winning the game. I mean, look, this guy is a Hall of Famer. This guy is widely revered. I mean, the guy, if you go back and especially talk to some of them older heads, some of those guys that really remember the Sonny Jurgensen, the Charlie Taylors, and some of the other guys on this list, this is one of those guys that they look at and they're like, yes, he was a star for Washington. It was so cool having him in Washington. So I love looking at his old clips and everything. And I remember the first time I realized, like, oh, he played for us? He played for Washington? Oh, I like that. Oh, absolutely. So shout out to Ken Houston. He is number 4 on my all-time list. All right, we got to keep moving this thing right along. Oh, man. And we are at and number 3, Chris Hamburger. Now, a lot of you guys will not remember who Chris Hamburger was, but again, this is from that Sonny Jurgensen, Charlie Taylor, Ken Houston era. This is from our first Super Bowl run in the early 70s. Chris Hamburger was the leader, the signal caller for the Over the Hill Gang, George Allen's famous older bunch defense. Boy, he was drafted in '65 and played 14 seasons with us, nicknamed the Hangman. I don't know how he got that nickname, but the guy was a star. 9 Pro Bowls, 4 first team All NFL honors from 72 to 76, had 19 interceptions, 45 and a half sacks, and 5 takeaways, 4 touchdowns, named the NFC Defensive Player of the Year in 1972, and helped Washington get to that Super Bowl against Miami in '72. Like I said, unfortunately we lost, but this guy, Hall of Famer, stud. And I remember, obviously with that last name, the first thing you think, hamburger. Hey, does this guy have something to do with McDonald's? Like, is he getting hamburgers? But it's actually Hamburger. And out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I ended up going to University of North Carolina. Tar Heel. No, I had to show love to my guys. But yeah, Chris Hamburger, I mean, a leader, a pro, I mean, a vet. Talk about the model of consistency, 14 years and being legit. Like I said, 9 Pro Bowls. Shout out to Chris Hamburger. He is number 3 on my list. And hey, look, if you watch this guy play, again, it's one of those things where I got to go back and watch the highlights. But if you watch him play, the guy's a stud. The guy was a stud, and he really helped us in those early years be a real dominant a dominant force. All right, we got two more we got to do. And number two, hey, this was well before my time, well before many people's time. I mean, I got to go back to my pop's time to deal with this. That's slinging Sammy Ball. As a matter of fact, this guy was drafted 2 years before my pops was born. Pops was born in 39. Slinging Sammy Ball was drafted in 37, the year that Washington was moved to Washington and started calling the Redskins. In his rookie season, this man in his rookie season drafted 6 overall. In his rookie season, led Washington to a championship, getting it done. 16 seasons with us, over 21,880 passing yards, 187 touchdowns. Both were records at the time of his retirement. But what makes Sammy Ball so amazing? He took us to a number of championships. Unfortunately, one we got shellacked by the what was it? The Bears. I think it was 1940 or 41. We got beat like 73-7 or something like that. Or no, might have been 73-0. Yeah, because I think the famous quote was, he said, "What would have happened if y'all would have scored," or something like that. And he said, "Oh, it would have been 73-7." You know what I mean? So, but we was able to get us 2 championships under him. I believe he got the second one in 1942. So we got one in 37 and one in 42, and those were the first championships at Washington had ever had at football. But I think one of the greatest things about him was, we know about his ability to pass, and obviously the name Slinging Sammy Ball. I mean, that's what it was. But this guy also was a punter. He punted. I mean, you got to break this down. This guy led, not only is he a punter, but he led the league in punting. Okay, and he also played DBs. In fact, in 1943, Slinging Sammy Ball led the league in passing, in punting, and in interceptions. I'm telling you this right now, that will never be done again. Never. And the fact that he did it, I mean, come on now. I mean, he's got to be high up on this list. And another thing that will never be broke, well, who knows if it'll ever be broken. In 1940, Sammy Ball averaged 51.4 yards a punt. That was his average in 1940. And that's a record that stands to this day. That was 1940 when it happened. We're talking about over 80 some odd years. Record has not been broken, probably will not be broken. Definitely won't be broken by a quarterback that's playing punter that's also playing DB. But the fact that he led those 3 categories in a season is unprecedented. The fact that he played offense both ways, offense and defense, and was our punter. I mean, look, it was more common for, maybe an offensive player or somebody to be punter as well as play another position on offense, but to have him as the punter, starting quarterback and DB, unmatched. Slinging Sammy, and helped us to get to multiple championships and win 2. I mean, hey, gotta show this guy his love. I always remember the late George Michael on NBC4 when I used to watch when I was living in Virginia. He would have those interviews with him, and he would always say, now the language is a little bit much, because Sammy, by the time, early 90s, he wasn't holding it in. He was going to say what he had to say. And I thought it was so cool, me being somebody that just loved watching football, just to sit there and watch Sammy and see everything, and see, just him reminisce on those old days and how things were. So, 2 championships, Slinging Sammy Ball, great one. But there was one that was better. And if you don't know by now, let me go ahead and tell you. Darrell Green. Let me just slow clap right now. If he's not on your list, I don't know what's going on with you. Darrell Green played 20 consecutive years with the Washington Redskins. Okay? He was picked 28th overall in that vaunted, that historic 1983 draft with the Elways and the Dickersons and the Marinos and all those greats. He was the last pick of the first round, and out of Texas A&I, and the guy never looked back. This guy led for years. He was the NFL's fastest man. I mean, there's year after year he'd go up against guys. I remember one year he went up against Willie Galt. One year Rod Woodson. One year I think Bo Jackson. I mean, I mean anybody that came up against him, the guy he just was faster than him. I mean, he would always do it. And somebody like myself, who when I was coming up, my speed was something that I really identified with. This guy, I connected with Daryl Green. I thought, Daryl, this guy is cool. I loved everything about him, and also because of the fact this is really unassuming. The guy was like 5'8". The guy was short. I mean, and short, kind of smaller, but it was his speed. And it was his ability to play at what he likes to call the right now moment. And in fact, in this picture that we have right here in the background, this was from the divisional playoff, the 1987 88 playoff, 1987 80 and 87 season 88 playoffs, where Daryl Green, when it was a big moment and Joe Gibbs really needed something, he would put Daryl Green at punt returner. And in this game, we had gone down early to the Chicago Bears in Soldier Field. It's freezing. You know, they had won the Super Bowl 2 years earlier. They were trying to get back. This was actually Walter Payton's final game, so he wanted his one last hurrah. We went down early. We ended up coming back. 14-10 was the score, and they punted it to Daryl. And I'll never forget, this is the one clip that I've always wanted to see, and I love seeing it. You see Daryl catch it around the sidelines, make a guy miss, runs up, guy tries to jump at him. He hurdles the guy, makes a hard right, and you can see he's touching his stomach. He ends up tearing, I believe, a cartilage or a rib in his stomach. So he's pressing it to put pressure on it and make sure it doesn't hurt, and he ended up taking it to the house and wasn't going to play in the championship game, but because they ended up giving him a shot, even though he was somebody that never wanted to take shots or any of that, ended up giving him a shot to play in the game and ended up making the play that actually sent us to the Super Bowl the following week. I mean, the guy was a part of 3 Super Bowls. We lost in '83, but was able to win in 87, 88, and then 91, 92. And I mean, 20 years, always the fastest, always put him on the best receiver on the other side. I mean, a lot of people remember, the older people, the 83 season when Tony Dorsett breaks his long run. And the whole story was always, Tony Dorsett gets out there, nobody's catching him. Dale Green caught him. Eric Dickerson, same thing. Eric Dickerson, and I think it was 84, breaks his long run. He's gone. Daryl Green got him. Daryl Green caught them all. Okay? He caught all of the great one, all of the speedsters. And for my money, this is it. I mean, one of the best corners of all time. Obviously, a lot of people will sit there and put Dion up there as number one. Respectfully, I understand it. But for my money, I'm biased. Daryl is my guy. I think he is by far the best corner in the game. And I'm going to get backlash for it. That's fine. I'm good with that. But what Daryl Green was able to do, I mean, he literally, just like Dion, I'll take this side of the field, you guys take the rest. This guy, I'm shutting him down. I mean, and because the reason why I always say Daryl Green is the best, because he was, most times the wide receiver was much bigger than him. Most times wide receiver might have been a lot stronger than him, and Daryl would still be the guy making the play. Okay? They call him Mr. Redskin for a reason. And the fact that he was able to stay there 20 years, same team, constantly be dominant, hardly ever hurt. I mean, what else can I say? Daryl Green, my guy. I mean, 54 picks, 6 touchdowns. and a club record 20 seasons for the team. And if I'm not mistaken, now he's in his 50s and he still runs something like a 4.540 or 4.440 or something like that. Like, come on now. What are we talking about? I remember when I used to run a 4.440. Now, we ain't going to talk about that. So, listen, Darrell Green is my number one overall greatest Redskin commander, football team player, whatever, of all time. This guy is it for me. I don't know how y'all feel, but if y'all are with me, hey, cool. Let me know how y'all feel about my top 10 list. Is it good? Is it bad? Happy, sad? I don't know. Let me know what y'all think. But this is it. This is who it is. Top 10. So from 10 to 1, I'm going to go back with it real quick just so y'all know. Charlie Taylor is 10 for me. Sonny Jurgensen is 9. Dexter Manley is 8. Joe Theismann is 7. Art Monk is 6. John Riggins is 5. Ken Houston is 4. Chris Handberger is 3. Slinging Sammy Ball is number 2. And my number 1 all-time greatest Washington Redskin commander, football team player, Washington player, it's got to go to Darrell Green, the fastest man. And the secret to his speed, Tootsie Roll. Make him run fast, baby. Let's go. Let's go. Yo. So, look, that's it. I'm out of here. I appreciate y'all sticking with me. Appreciate y'all. I know y'all going to have your opinions on it. So, feel free. Put it out there and let me know. Stay tuned. I am going to be coming within the next 2 days with this list. I really tried to do my homework on players and who was good basically by their careers, their stats, by their tenure, and their impact. But I'm going to do another one on my favorite, and that's going to be real quick. Top 10 favorite Washington Commanders, Redskins, football team, whatever it is. That one doesn't matter as much as their longevity, as much as the impact that I feel like they had on me. So my favorite will be on that. And if you actually listen to this one, I gave you the hint of the spoiler on who is my favorite of all time. But yeah, definitely tune into that. And I'm also going to give you top 10 first round picks. Doesn't mean how great they were, but more the impact that they had, the excitement that they brought. And hey, Darrell might be right up there on that one too. Who knows? We'll see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got to get out of here. Darrell Green, number 1 in my book. Hopefully y'all have your opinion. Hopefully y'all feel the same or different. Who knows? But in my book, he's number 1. We'll see how y'all operate, man. Yo, it is your boy, Sean Spencer, one half of that dynamic duo that's Let's Talk Football. I appreciate y'all joining me for this show, and hopefully everything will be good for you. Hey, I'll see y'all on the flip side. Peace, people.
Dun, 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 dun.
Let's go. The Washington Commanders. There it is.